Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to be sharing with you my exit piano recital. These past 2 years at CSI have been such a great experience, and I have been so fortunate to be studying with Sue Miller and all of the other faculty at CSI. I have really enjoyed my experience. And I've got a few things I want to talk to you about tonight, so I've got my notes here to make sure that I don't forget anything. But over these past 2 years at CSI, I will have earned my associate's degree, and I have participated in a lot of the different organizations in the music department, some of which include the Magic Valley Chorale, the Percussion Ensemble, the Piano Ensemble, and also the Chamber Ensemble. I've had such a great experience working with my classmates and, working with fellow musicians. It has been so great. And like I said, I'll be graduating this May with my associates and a little bit over 90 credits. As you may have noticed, we are not together in the CSI auditorium. And while I would have liked to do my recital live in person, I had this idea to do it in this manner because the restrictions on group meetings and also the possibility of getting sick for 2 weeks were just too unpredictable. But fortunately, I will be able to share with you some of the other things that I have been working on at CSI other than music. So over the past 2 years, I have been doing lots of different side projects, and with those, I have become skilled in video and audio production, and you will see some of the fruits of those labors this evening. And because this event was going to be digital, I wanted to ensure the highest quality possible. So I'm going to let you know a little bit about the background in producing this entire event. So the week of March 15th, I reserved the Fine Arts Auditorium to record and prepare for everything for this recital, other than the practicing. I've been practicing for 2 years. But during that week, I was probably at CSI in the evenings for 5 hours each day. We had 2 pianos set up to record on. We had 3 separate camera angles, 4 different microphones, lots and lots of cables, and in the end, I ended up with over 150 gigabytes worth of files. After I did the recording, I had to organize the files, and I had to mix and master the audio, and I'm just finishing up the video editing, which you will get to see this evening. So I would estimate that my hours doing the mixing and the mastering and the video editing and all of that stuff probably is about equal in the amount of hours that I spent recording and preparing this whole project. So while it is a little bit different doing this recital in this way, I think it's equally stressful and I think it's equally time intensive as if I would have done a live event. So now before we start, because we are doing a digital stream, there were some audience involvement things that I wanted to do. And so before each piece, I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the composer who wrote the piece and as well as the background of the piece. And if you are comfortable sharing or participating, there will be a live chat box and it should be to the right of your screen. So I'll have a little bit of listening examples and things for you to comment about. But if you don't feel comfortable or you just don't want to do that, that is totally fine. Feel free to just grab your snacks and sit back and relax and enjoy this program. So one last thing before we begin the first piece for this evening. I'm going to put a little QR code on the screen, and you should be able to put your phone up to it with the camera, and that will link to the program so that you can follow along. And if you can't scan a QR code, there will be a link in the description down below so that you can see all of the pieces that I will be playing this evening. So now let's jump into the first piece. Beginning this recital, you will get to hear from probably, arguably, one of the greatest composer of all time, and that is Johann Sebastian Bach. And he is considered one of the greatest composers, likely because of his large amount of compositions. He composed over 1,000 works in varying complexity and also time length. When I was planning and putting together all of the different pieces, one thing I noticed is that we'll be going throughout time. So this first piece is the earliest piece ever written, and the last piece that you'll hear is the latest piece ever written. So the first piece, so Johann Sebastian Bach is from the Baroque era, which started in around 1600 and went till around 1750. A lot of music historians debate on the time frames, but the piece I'll be playing for you is the Bach Prelude and Fugue number 6 in D minor. And the Prelude and Fugue was a very popular form during that time, and as you may have guessed, it's a 2-movement work with the Prelude and the Fugue. And the Prelude is basically just a warm-up, to warm up your ear to the upcoming attractions, which in this case is the Fugue. And something fun about the Prelude is, despite it being in a minor key, it is still kind of bouncy and fun, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's kind of dance-like. And then after that will be the Fugue. And the Fugue is another important form that became very popular in the Baroque era. And it's basically just where, in the piece, the composer presents the main idea, and then that main idea gets inverted, and it gets flipped, and it gets transposed in all of the different voices. So my goal as the performer is to make sure that you can always hear the main ideas, because there will be lots of different things going on besides the main melody. So my goal is to bring it out so that you can always hear it. So in this fugue, the main melody that gets thrown around sounds a little bit like this. So throughout the piece, you will hear that main musical idea put through all of the different voices. You'll hear it in the left hand, and you will hear it upside down. You'll hear it start, but it won't complete. So as you listen, I invite you to listen to how many times you hear the occurrence of that main musical idea. And when we come back, we'll compare our answers and see what you got. So please enjoy the Bach Prelude and Fugue in D minor. How many Bach motifs did you get? Well, according to my calculations, I got 10 different occurrences of that main idea. And just to let you know, there is some debate on whether you count the upside down ones or whether you count the ideas that started but didn't finish. So answers may vary, but I believe there is about 10 occurrences of that main motif that was in the fugue. So now we are going to move on to the classical era of classical music. And the classical era started in around 1730 and ended around 1820. And the piece that you will be hearing is a Beethoven sonata. And I love all of the composers, but Beethoven has to be probably my favorite. He has a large selection of piano works, but he also has other works other than piano. And there's just an interesting emotional connection to his music, even though it's not in the Romantic period of music. There's still something about the expression in his music that just connects with me. One other characteristic of Beethoven's music that I like is it's so surprising. You never know where he's gonna go. Whenever you think there's going to be an ending, he always surprises you and does a little vacation in a different key. And a lot of his music has lots of different funny, hilarious kind of jokes that he's poking at you. And so Beethoven is just one of my all-time favorites. And so the piece I'll be playing for you is a 4-movement sonata. So the first movement is in sonata form, and I'm not going to get into the details of the form, but basically there's 3 main sections in the first movement, and those are characterized by what we call A, B, and A. And so the 2 A's are similar in content, and so Beethoven will present a lot of different ideas, and he will do a little bit of key change, but not anything crazy. And in the B section, that is where there's lots of harmonic experimentation, there's lots of tension and resolution, and it's really where he kind of experiments with the different sounds that he presented. And so then after that experimental time, he goes back to the A section and plays a lot of the similar things that he played at the very beginning. But before the piece ends, I invite you to look for a surprise. Something that is very characteristic of Beethoven's music is that he would surprise you. So in music, when you get to a 5 chord, and I won't get into the details, but it's a pretty basic concept to understand. When you get to the 5 chord, it really wants to go to the main tonic chord that the piece is based in. So this sonata is based in C major. So when I play a G chord, a G7 chord, it really wants to go to C. But like I said, Beethoven likes to pull surprises on you. So instead of going to the 1 chord, he goes up a half step to the flat 6th chord, which is very surprising because that chord is not found in the key of C major without adding accidentals to it. So instead of going to 1, he goes from 5 to flat 6. And that is just a very surprising sound for the ear, and it's something that is just so much fun. And so I invite you to look for that, and keep in mind, it is near the end of the piece, or the first movement, and the first movement is about 8 minutes. So don't get too trigger happy when you hear something a little weird, because it will be near the end of the movement. And let's see, 2 more things about this piece, this movement. I was looking online, and if any of you know who Arthur Rubinstein is, he is a famous musician. He plays the piano, but he's also done other things. But apparently it says online that Arthur Rubinstein would use this movement of the sonata to test the different pianos as he was touring around the world. And I think that is because this movement has such a large contrast from technical to more lyrical to more soft to loud, and so it's really got a large variety of different musical styles in it. And lastly, for the first movement, something that's interesting about it and unique about it is that there's a cadenza, and basically the cadenza was normally just found in concertos, and I'll talk a little bit about concertos later on in the program, but it's basically a period of time in the music where you don't really play with the metronome. It's kind of more free, and it's basically a time where you get to show off. And so that is a really fun section. So I encourage you to listen for that, and I hope you can find that surprise. For the second movement, I'm not going to talk as much about the second movement, but it is the slow movement, which is a very nice contrast to the first movement. So it's very lyrical, very calm, and it's the Adagio movement. So it's slow and just very peaceful, and it's really dreamy. And one thing that I find interesting as I have been working on it, is the contrast from dark to light and how Beethoven goes between kind of the peaceful beginning and then the stormy middle. So I want you to listen for that contrasting styles that he does in just that one movement. So the third movement is what's called the Scherzo and Trio. And so if you don't know what Scherzo translates to, it basically means it's a light-hearted joke. And so it's very light. It's in what we call 3/4 time. So it's kind of dance-like, and it's bouncy. And then the trio is contrasting in style, whereas it's a little bit more lyrical, it's a little bit slower. And then the typical thing to do is to go back to the scherzo. So I'll play the scherzo, then the trio, and then the scherzo. And that's all the third movement. Lastly, I know you're getting tired of me talking, so I'll make this brief. There's a fourth movement, which is called the Allegro assai, which just means fast, but not too fast. And this movement also has lots of tension resolution. It's got lots of different styles, kind of like the first movement. And this whole sonata is just like lots of fun. It's mostly lighthearted. And I think that really encapsulates who this sonata was dedicated to. So Beethoven dedicated this sonata to Franz Joseph Haydn, who earlier in his life was his composing teacher. And so a lot of Haydn's music was very light and kind of, he was trying to be funny with you and make you not laugh at the piece, but just make you kind of happy. And I think this whole piece encapsulates that. So I'm going to stop talking. Let's listen to music, and I hope you enjoy Beethoven's Third Piano Sonata in C major. I hope you enjoyed that Beethoven sonata. Could you hear those cadenzas and those surprises in the Beethoven piece? Well, we are going to move on now to the Romantic period of classical music, and I will be playing for you a piece by Felix Mendelssohn. And just a little bit of background, he was a Romantic composer, and the Romantic period was from around 1830 and it went until around 1920. So the Romantic era is well known for its extreme expression and the push and pull of time. So in the Baroque era, the composers and the performers would really play with the beat and they wouldn't really take any time. But that all gets kind of thrown out the window. And in the Romantic era, they did lots of pushing and pulling of time. There was lots of musical expression, and everything was just, as the era is called, everything was just romantic. So the piece I'll be playing for you is Andante and Rondo Capriccioso, and that's basically just the markings for the piece. The Andante, the first part, is just a nice, slow, enjoyable, lyrical, full of expression. It's just a really enjoyable part of the piece. And then after that is the Rondo Capriccioso. And I'll tell you what a rondo is in a moment, but capriciousness, or a capriccioso, is quite similar to a scherzo as we saw in the Beethoven sonata. It's basically just like a light-hearted, kind of funny, almost jokingly trying to poke fun at you. Even though it's in a minor key, it's still like really light-hearted, and it's just fun, and it's really technical as well. So this piece was really hard to work on and to keep maintained because it is just super technical, but it is also really fun to listen to and really fun to play. So the rondo part, the second part of this piece, is what we call a rondo. And in musical terms, it's basically a piece that has a reoccurring melody. So when we get to the rondo section of this piece, you'll hear it right away. It's not going to do any intro except for the Andante part. Once we move on to the rondo part, you will hear the first section, which we call in music terms, we just call it the A section. And then it goes to a B section, then it comes back to the A section. Then it goes to a C section, and then it goes back to the A section. So a rondo, that's just where we come back, and then we go on a little adventure, and then we come back to the A section. So that's the main idea of the rondo. And it should be pretty easy for you to identify the different sections, because oftentimes the composers would completely shift gears and do something that was a little bit more slower or a little bit more lyrical. In this case, the first A section is very light and jokingly, it's very capricious. And in this piece, like the Beethoven, there is another surprise ending that I think will surprise you. So without further ado, let's listen to Felix Mendelssohn's Andante and Rondo Capriccioso. So in that Mendelssohn piece, were you able to hear the different sections in the piece? It was quite fun to play, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it as well. So we are now moving on to the 20th century of classical music, and that sounds scarier than it is. A lot of people think that when someone says 20th century, it's going to be like really weird music, but the piece I will be playing for you is very tonal, and it is not anything crazy at all. So if many of you will probably recall, around, I think it was 4 years ago, I played the first movement of this piece with the Magic Valley Symphony. And after the recital, I'll make sure that video is left at the end of the screen if you want to watch even more music. But I will be playing Kabalevsky's third piano concerto, and I'll only be playing the third movement. And a lot of Kabalevsky's music, especially this piece in particular, it really sounds like an adventure. So I imagine like a movie scene where they're like going across the mountains doing their adventure, kind of like a montage of going to the place that they need to go to rescue the damsel in distress or whatever. So it's really an adventurous sounding music. So like I said, it's a piano concerto, and if you don't know what a concerto is, it's basically where a solo instrument plays with an orchestra. So I don't know if you'd call it a solo instrument, but there's a soloist who plays with an orchestra, and it's kind of got this question and answer relationship, and it was really fun to play with the Magic Valley Symphony. However, this time I get to play with my piano teacher, Sue Miller, and I'm so excited to be playing with her. It is so much fun to play with her. I think learning from her, we have similar music styles, and we take breaths at the same spot, and we kind of interpret music similarly, and it is just so much fun to play. And as I was preparing this, I think now is just as good a time as any to do my thank you to her and recognize her. So if we were in the same room together, I'd have her come up to the stage and I would give her flowers. And I did give her flowers, and I took a picture with her and I'll put it up on the screen. But I would just like to take a moment to recognize her. I am so grateful for all that she does. She is such an amazing teacher. She's so articulate, and she really tries and helps me to understand what she's trying to get me to play, and I really have enjoyed spending this time with her. And she's also, one last thing, she has made so many sacrifices for me, and all this time together has been such a great opportunity for us to bond. And so I would like you to send her some digital round of applause, and I'm so grateful for her, and it is so much fun to play with her. So this will be a piano duo, so we're going to be on 2 separate pianos, and I want to see if you can hear the different relationships between the question and answer between the 2 pianos. So I think that's enough introduction to this piece, I hope you enjoy Kabalevsky's Third Piano Concerto, Third Movement. so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that Kabalevsky piano concerto and all of the pieces that I have played this evening. It has been so great to host you, and I am so appreciative of your support. It has been so great these past 2 years. I've received so much support. But before you go, I have 2 things I want to do. First, there are some people I want to recognize. I've already told you about Sue Miller. I'm super appreciative of her, but there have been so many other people who have helped me along my educational journey that I would like to recognize. And there are a lot of other people behind the scenes, but these are a few of the people that I wanted to make sure really got in here. So first of all, I would like to thank my parents. I also got them flowers, and I will show you the picture. This is where I would bring them up in the recital too. I'm so grateful for them and for their sacrifice and the gift of music that they have given me. I have really enjoyed playing piano over these 13 years. It's been a long time. I have just been so blessed. They are amazing parents, and I'm so grateful for them. Next, I would like to thank the CSI faculty. All of the faculty at CSI have been instrumental in helping me in my music career. And those people, namely, are Serena Clark, George Halsell, Ben Britton, Scott Farkas, Carson Wong, Mike Frew, and last but not least, Megan Andrew. They have all helped me and also have been a significant part in my education here at CSI. We are so fortunate to have them. While we are on the CSI topic, I would also like to recognize the technicians in the Fine Arts Auditorium, Dan McLaren, Mike Crane, and Megan Burnham. They helped me set up the pianos and the microphones, and they just do a phenomenal job in what they do. And they're also just so much fun to be around. Second to lastly, I had 2 mentors that helped me with the music production. Michael McClellan and Ben Britton both played a large role in mentoring me, and I am so grateful for them. And so I would like to also have you guys all send a digital round of applause to all of those people. I'm so grateful for them, and also I'm so grateful for the people at CSI. We are so fortunate to have a wonderful music building at CSI. The 2 pianos that we are playing on, the Yamaha, which I played on, and the Steinway, which Sue Miller played on, are both fantastic pianos. And the pianos all around the building are just so fantastic. And it's something that some colleges don't have. And we just have fantastic buildings and fantastic pianos and fantastic resources. This recital would not have been able to be what it is without the pianos and the microphones and the cameras that CSI helped me with. And so I'm so grateful for them and everyone else. It has just been such a fantastic, and I've been so blessed to be around all of these people. The second thing before you guys leave is that I have prepared an encore, and hopefully you guys are clapping a lot because you're getting an encore whether you liked my recital or not. But before I tell you about the encore, this is going to be the last time I talk this evening, and I figured you guys might be interested in knowing what I'm going to be doing in the future. A lot of it is unpredictable, but I do know in the next 2 to 3 years what my plans will be. So, after I graduate in May, I will be serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I will be starting that training, the online training, on June 29th, and hopefully I will be able to leave in August for Cancun, Mexico, and I will be speaking Spanish. So when I get back from my mission, I will be staying in Idaho to complete my undergraduate, and I'd like to study something with a combination of music, communications, and business. And if you would like to keep updated, I should be posting semi-regularly on my Facebook and Instagram, so if you want to keep up with me, you can go to those. You can just search for my name. But I think that's enough about me. So before I play for you my encore, I would like to introduce the piece just a little bit. So I will be playing a Chopin Nocturne. And Frédéric Chopin was from the Romantic era, and he is just a piano giant. My recital would not be complete without a work by Chopin. And Chopin had a rough life. He had tuberculosis when he was young, all throughout his life, and he died at a young age, and he was just an extremely emotional person. You could say something and you wouldn't know if he would laugh or cry or be angry or go into a depression. So he was extremely musical, and a lot of his music is all of his music is emotional, especially it being in the Romantic period. And a lot of pianists love him because he almost entirely composed for only piano. So we are really lucky as pianists to have such a large repertoire of music, and he contributed to that greatly. So one last thing before I play it, what I love about playing this Romantic music is that especially Chopin's music, he was a master at composing for piano. Once you learn a Chopin piece, it is stuck in your fingers. It feels so good to play. It's so natural. And I think that kind of goes in with the expressiveness. It's so easy to be musical with his music. And when I play his music, especially this piece, I often think about, this piece is in F minor, and it's really kind of a slow, reflective piece. I kind of think of this piece as an opportunity for me to get, to recharge my batteries on some of the hard things that I'm going through. And I hope some of those things are things that you also get with music, because I don't want this to just be for me. I invite you to think about some of the different, hard things that we have been going on, especially with this past year. And I hope you use this opportunity for you to recharge your emotional batteries, and I hope you enjoy this piece. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It has been such a pleasure to be here. I hope you enjoyed my exit recital, and without further ado, let's hear Chopin's Nocturne in F minor.